Welcome, everyone. Today is September 13, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today on the agenda, we're going to go over the status of the items we've been working on for 1.12. Code freeze was last week, and we'll go over and see what made it and what didn't make it. And then we can discuss any PRs that need attention and any miscellaneous status updates. So let's jump into the planning spreadsheet and get status updates. So implementing out-of-tree volume snapshot and restore controller. Jing or Xing, are you on the line?
Hi, yes. So all the main PRs have been merged. We are working on documentation, E2E testing, and bug fixing. So.
Awesome, thank you, Xing.
Thanks.
Next up, we have block volume support, which was going to remain in alpha for this quarter for CSI, and we're going to work on some bug fixes there. Vlad had some folks on his team that were working on that. Vlad, do you have any updates on this?
Yeah, we're continuing to look at bug fixes. We just had a new one show up not too long ago, so we're investigating that, which is a new implementation with RBD, I believe, using block. So we're looking into that.
Cool. Is there any issues that are being currently actively worked on?
Yeah, the new one, I don't have the PR. I'm sorry, I don't have the issue, but yeah, there's an issue we're looking into right now. I don't have the number with me, but I'll give it to you. I'll put it on there.
Sounds good. And next up, we're going to go ahead and review the Csi drivers as well, because we're getting close to the end of quarter. Actually, let me check when the next meeting is. We could do it then too, but it doesn't hurt. The VMware vSphere driver, Vlad, any updates on this?
Yeah, that effort is on the way. It's early stage right now. We're looking to have something this coming quarter.
Cool. Next up is the cluster plugin registration mechanism. So this was merged and is alpha in the current release, the 1.12 release. And there are changes to the sidecar containers that need to be made that Luis is currently working on. Next up,
Saad.
Yes.
Is that related to the device plugin watcher stuff?
No, this is the cluster registration. The device plugin stuff is Cubelet registration.
All right.
Next up is skipping the entry attach detach for non-attachable volumes. So Jan and Hemant worked on this and got it in. So status is that it's merged, and the only remaining thing is documentation. Hemant, are you going to work on the documentation for this? Looks like he might not be on the line with us. Okay, next up is the mount library. The core Kubernetes and CSI drivers should consume. I believe this is the util mount library that exists today. Travis, do you want to give an update on this?
Yeah, I do have a PR open for this. It is not going to make 1.12. I was too late on that and getting started. I've gotten some early feedback from David Zhu. So it's in progress. But yeah, I didn't make the 1.12 window. I was late with it.
No worries.
But But yeah, I can throw a link to the PR in here.
Okay, sounds good. I think this actually might be important for the effort to move the cloud provider code out of tree as well, because a lot of the cloud providers depend on this code. So if it's abstracted away into a separate repository, they can consume it as well. So sounds good. Next up is the Cubelet device plugin registration mechanism that Michelle was talking about. That also got promoted to beta this quarter, which was our goal. So thank you to Vlad for pushing that through. I believe the remaining work here is around documentation.
Yes.
Next up, preparing CSI for GA in Q4. So that was the goal. I think of the 8 items that we were tracking, 7 of them got done. So we're looking pretty good for GA in Q4. We're going to push for a GA in Q4. We're going to try to get the CSI spec itself 1.0'd by the Thanksgiving timeframe so that Kubernetes can pick it up in the 1.13 release. Next up is pluggable end-to-end test framework. I don't believe work was started on this. Michelle or Patrick, any updates on this?
Yeah, so there's been some refactoring done with our in-tree E2E tests that will basically work towards this goal of having a truly pluggable framework. I think Patrick is also separately making some changes to the E2E framework itself that it needs to be reviewed by the SIG testing.
Awesome. Great. All right, so we'll mark that as started and carry that on into the next quarter. Local PV health monitoring is, any updates on this? I think
I have not started on this. There is a design that's been in review for a while.
Cool. And we can prioritize this next quarter. So let's call it started. And then for Kubernetes Conformance, this was a design. Looks like you were able to finish everything that we wanted.
Yeah, at least I think we have a plan going forward. And with the refactoring that was done, I think we can start executing on that next release.
Awesome. So we can mark that as complete. CSI Conformance, I don't think we started on.
That's correct.
Okay. Provisioning capacity reporting for generic topology design. Any updates on this?
Oh, yeah, I'm brainstorming a design for this, so I should be able to have something out by the end of this month.
Cool. So we'll keep that as started, and then we can do one more review of this by the next meeting. Block volume support to beta. Any updates on this?
This did not go in.
Okay.
We had the PRs out, we just didn't get it reviewed in time.
Okay, so I think let's front load this on 113 and really get it in this time.
That's a good idea anyways, just so we can have it at the start of the release and have it give it some soak time.
Yep. Cool. Next up is CSI external provisioner scalability issues. Matt Long was working on a lot of these. And Brad or Matt, do you guys want to give a status update on this?
The library side is done, but the CSI external provisioner needs to be updated, and someone put something on the agenda about that, and I guess I can talk about that later too. So yeah, it's still in progress.
Cool. Next up is topology dynamic provisioning to data. This was marked as complete. Anything you want to add to this, Michelle?
Nope, I think we're in good shape for the release.
Cool. Local volume dynamic provisioning. How about this one?
This work is going to depend on the capacity reporting design, so I don't think we're going to make much progress on it this quarter.
We'll leave that marked as started. There was some docs released here, right?
Yeah. There's definitely been, its design and prototyping has been happening.
Cool. Subpath expansion redux. So it turns out the changes for alpha or API breaking, can't use that approach, need to consider a new approach, need to have someone take ownership of this.
Yep, I found an owner for it, and I am working with him to get a proposal out for the next release.
Okay. Proposal, implement next release. Let's change this. So this was a design, so let's get started. Rollback environment variable expansion, decided to take redesign. Yes, subpath features. Okay, that's great. So we're going to roll forward instead of rolling back. Okay, so next up is CSI driver for iSCSI. Update the iSCSI driver to use the new library plus 0.3 changes. John, any updates on this?
The first step is actually no updates on that. I'll get to that next. I'm waiting for the iSCSI connector library work that we talked about, which I think is the next one.
Okay. Yeah, we can jump into that too.
Yeah, that one. So that's been an initial PR has been up, or GitHub repo has been up on that for about a month now. It's got some feedback, but I'm looking for some people to look at it. And then also the question of whether we wanted to combine all the connectors or not came up in one of the meetings, and we should probably decide what we want to do there.
Sorry, what was the second point?
So currently the way that's set up is the idea was that you could have the Fibre channel connector and an iSCSI connector both in that same package, and just import the ones individually that you wanted. And actually both of them have implementations now. There was some discussion in one of the meetings that some folks didn't like that idea, and I think Ben in particular was concerned that that wasn't a good way to go. So
I see.
I don't think it was me that was concerned. I thought it was Brad.
oh. Maybe it was nobody. I'll take that.
I mean, I don't have a problem with sharing some code between iSCSI and Fibre channel, as long as you can just use one or the other, assuming you don't want both.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep. And that was the setup. Sorry, I misspoke there. For some reason, anyway, somebody did raise some concern about it.
I thought it was Brad. That's my memory. In any case, I have started looking at the code, but I would like to actually integrate it into a working driver and try it out. And before I give it the thumbs up, and I have not done that yet. But
yeah, and that's actually what I'm getting ready to do with the Csi driver that I just punted on. So.
Okay.
So does anybody object to having a single new repo for these libraries instead of multiple repos for each one of these libraries?
Not me. That's the way to go.
My memory is Brad's specific concern was how do you do releases? If they're in one repo, you can't release one without releasing all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the thing I brought up last time is versioning on this. I didn't want us to get into another issue like we did with external storage where one thing would, cause a version rev and not necessarily want that on the other thing.
That's a good point. That's kind of the reason that we've been splitting out everything anyway, so.
Right. But if John says that's not an issue, I'm okay with that.
But I have a feeling I'm being set up here.
We'll just record this talk and always.
Exactly.
I guess the other thing is in terms of packaging, like maybe if you want one and not the other, is it still possible to only package what you need?
Yeah, so the way that's set up right now is there's a package directory, or actually there's not a package because it's all packages. But there's a Csi directory and there's a Fibre channel directory, and you just import the one that you need and use it. That's the model, right? So you don't have to import the entire library. You just import the sub package that you want.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Sure.
They won't have any shared dependencies, right? So where we got in trouble with the external storage repo was in like the client Go dependencies.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Oh, so I see what you're talking about. Yeah. Not right now. The way it's set up is it's intentionally dead simple so that you won't have things like that. They are pretty much completely independent, even though they're in the same repo and they share the same interface for the most part. They are independent packages. So.
Okay. I think then let's just do separate repos for them. Next question is where to put them. We can put them under the Kubernetes SIGs or we can put them under Kubernetes-CSI. Any preference?
Either one seems fine to me. Kubernetes CSI seems to make a little more sense, but
yeah, I agree. Okay, let's do that. We'll get these repos created. Brad, do you want to do that?
Sure.
The process now is that we have to open up an issue against Kubernetes/orgs and tell them what repos we want created, and they'll go ahead and do that for us.
Sure, I'll do that.
Cool. And then once that's created, we can create PRs to populate that and go from there.
John, do you have a naming preference for these?
I just did CSI connectors. That seemed...
how about CSI-connector or CSI-mountlib? Or is that too reductive? / like NFS or iSCSI?
Yes. John promises they'll all work together.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, so the library that I have, so that actually brings up an interesting point because we're going to want to bring in the mount libraries and everything else too, right? So one repo for all of that.
Well, so hopefully the work that Travis is doing is going to create a new repo and put the mount libraries in there, and
okay.
Those could be imported.
Then I would call this either just CSI connectors or CSI attacher.
Attacher.
Because these tools, the only thing they do is they just do the underlying attachment. They don't actually do the mount or the formatting or any of that stuff. Right? So.
Interesting.
Or can it just be like iSCSI util?
Yeah, but then you'll have to have a separate one for Fibre channel.
Right, which is what we decided. I think we're okay with that.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay, yeah, then that's cool.
Util is very general purpose. I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out naming, but I guess something util or something mounter Attacher seems a little weird to me. I guess mounter probably is too, but I'll leave it to you guys to figure out the naming.
Cool. I'll
All right,
harass
thank
Vlad
you.
later.
Next up is inline volume support. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get this. Vlad worked very hard on it, and it was almost there. But ultimately, it was just short of the code freeze. So we decided to punt this to next quarter. Next up is passing workload information to CSI. This was completed as alpha. So this is now possible using the new CSI cluster registry. And we need to do needs docs, which hopefully Mont can update. He responded to the comment that I had, so hopefully we can get that in. Next up, share workload info, CSI spec. We decided not to do this. Dynamic max volume per node count to beta. Hemant or Michelle, do you have any updates on this?
Which one is this one? The
I think this is the
volume count.
Node count. So the volume per node.
So yeah, this went in as beta.
Awesome. So we got that moved to beta, and then the next one was adding this support into CSI. Do you know what happened there?
Yes, the work he did was to add the support for CSI.
Awesome. So this went in as well.
I think the only outstanding items here is we probably need some more E2E tests.
Okay. And then add volume usage capacity metrics to CSI spec. That was completed. Dynamic max capacity per plugin per node count for entry in CSI. How is this different than, oh, this is per max capacity. I don't think there was any progress made here, was there?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move to 1.13. Okay, next up is add support for volume expansion to CSI. I don't know if that PR got merged. I know it was very close. Does anybody else have any idea? Take a look real quick. Looks like it's still outstanding. Okay, we'll leave that as is. AWS EBS driver. Fabio and Jan started working on this. Do you guys want to give an update?
So I think, hello everyone, this is Chen.
Hi, Cheng.
Hey, Nishi started working on this.
Okay.
Like she's migrating from Fabio's repository to hers now. I think that is done, but it's not in Kubernetes SIG yet.
Got it.
To add more color, I know that Fabio had gotten this pretty much through all the stages. I think there was just some testing and some other things to go on with it.
Okay.
But he demoed attach, detach, like the full life cycle of EBS.
Nice. Are we ready to create a new repo for it? Is Nishi going to do that?
Yeah, she's gonna I guess the steering committee need to do something too, like either her or the committee.
I think. Not sure there.
Upstream.
Yeah.
I think she should just be able to get approval from SIG AWS for creating a new repo. And then the process is you go to, I think it's Kubernetes/orgs, open an issue there and say, SIG AWS wants a new repo under Kubernetes SIGs. We want it to be named such and such, and they'll go ahead and do that. Sounds good. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Got it.
Cool. So it looks like most of the work there is completed, and it needs to be migrated into a repo. So that's looking good. Entry plugin, this is the topology updates for Azure, AWS, and GC. Looks like all of them were completed. So thank you for that work, Deep.
Sure. There's a new one coming up for Sender, so I'll just add an item for it.
Okay. Let's make sure that we add that to 1.13.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Next up is the CSI driver for Azure Disk and Azure File. Any updates on this, Deep?
I do not. I was kind of waiting on the EBS driver to take shape, and then we'll kind of track it. And,
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll just move this to next quarter.
Sure.
Does anybody know what this is? Deep, do you know what this is?
Didn't someone present on that a couple meetings ago?
I must have missed it. But it does look like somebody put together some sort of driver for both of these. Maybe that could be a starting point.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the CSI driver that the Azure folks wrote up. So Dong is from the Azure team.
Yep.
And so that is to,
it's probably a month ago.
Move it under SIG Azure.
Okay, so it looks like there is some sort of prototype drivers that are available for both of these, and that we're going to punt it to next quarter to actually move them into a real repo. Okay. So let's mark that as started. And updating Azure file driver to use the CIFS common library. I think considering that library didn't get created, this work doesn't make sense. How do I mark this as? All right, whoever can figure out how to do a strike through, please do that. Otherwise, I'll follow up on this. Next up is finalize on migration story for entry plugins to CSI. David, are you on the line? Looks like he's not. So the last outstanding item here was the inline volume mapping. Inline volumes didn't go in for CSI this quarter. So we're going to have to reassess and figure out what the plan here is. I know Nishi and her team are very interested in working on this as well. So I put her in touch with David, and they're going to work together to try and figure out what the next steps here are. And make sure that what we do is in alignment with what's going on with the general cloud provider out-of-tree migration that's also happening at the same time. All right, next up are the GC PD CSI drivers adding REPD and topology support. Looks like that was completed. Next up is containerized Cubelet issues. Status was Brad was helping to find an owner for this. Brad, any updates, end of quarter updates on this?
Eric Pierce is the one owning this stuff.
Okay.
So I'll just drop that out there, especially since he's not here to defend himself.
Let's say Eric Paris will own, and next quarter we're going to tackle it.
Yes.
Okay. CSI driver GCPD raw block support. Chang, are you on the line?
Yeah, no progress here.
Okay. So we'll move that to next quarter. Next up is CSI external provisioner topology support for Kubernetes to CSI. So this was a massive amount of work. Chang, do you want to give a status update?
Yep. So the Cubelet registration mechanism, all the PR for that, for updating the node information from the driver, that's all in. We have a bunch of outstanding items for around the installation of the CRDs. We're getting going to push out a PR sometime today to get that all in. But outside that, I'll be prototyping or focusing on the topology work on the external provisioner side.
Awesome. This was a massive amount of work, so thank you for that, Cheng. And looks like it's pretty close to complete. The in-tree code is largely complete, except for a few bug fixes, and the out-of-tree work is currently in progress.
Yep.
Cool. Next up is updating the Fibre channel driver to use the Fibre channel library. Any updates on this?
Yeah, I've been working on that. It's almost complete, and the PR should be up soon.
Awesome. Feel free to send a message to SIG Storage when it's ready to review, and I'm sure people here will be very interested in taking a look at that. Thank you.
No problem.
And then, of course, the Fibre channel common library itself.
There's a PR in review right now for that.
Perfect.
Yeah, I should get that merged today. Thanks.
It needs a permanent home, right?
Yep. Same. That's back to the other conversation. So actually, I guess it doesn't need to merge.
Yeah, let's get that repo created and then get this merged in there. Thank you both for that. Next up is how do we actually test Fibre channel, iSCSI, NFS, and related stuff? There was supposed to be a call around this. Did that ever happen? Do we have any updates on this?
We had a call weeks and weeks ago. There hasn't been any change in status since then.
Okay.
We kind of identified just who was working on what. Some of this was waiting for people to free up resources, which should probably be happening in the next week or so.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move this to the next release then.
Okay.
Next up is deleting the iSCSI devices on unmount. Ben got this in, so thank you, Ben. Csi driver update for NFS along with the NFS library. Ben, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the NFS Commons library, there's no work to be done. We're pretty confident about that. There is mount options changes that are needed for NFS in general that don't need to be a separate thing. I have PRs for those that aren't merged because I have to write some unit tests.
Okay.
Regarding the update the NFS driver to use the libplus 0.3 changes, the NFS side of that's going to be really easy, but I'm not 100% sure on what the other half is supposed to look like. So is there an example of something that I can copy to how to interface on the Kubernetes side?
Maybe sync up with the iSCSI changes that we're pretty much doing the same thing.
Do we already have code on the, so that when you see like an iSCSI volume, it calls the CSI driver instead of the existing code, like an example of that?
I'm sorry, I don't follow. What do you mean?
So I understand at a high level what we're trying to do here, but I don't have the details straight, so
Okay.
I haven't written.
So
Ben,
actually,
you
now,
can sync up with me. I
Okay.
wrote a CSI driver for a Google NFS product, so I think you're asking about like how to deploy it in Kubernetes and how to actually...
Writing the CSI driver is easy. It's getting it to plug in such a way that it can be used for.
Yeah, so you're asking about how to actually like deploy it and use it in Kubernetes.
I think so. Yeah, I'll sync up with you.
Sure.
So, Ben, one thing to add to that is I think you're looking at the same thing I was looking at on the iSCSI one, which for me, I just considered it a new driver. I didn't try and...
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a whole separate driver that doesn't do any creation or deletion. It just does attaches. But then how does it get the information from, because it's not going to be a CSI volume in Kubernetes, it's going to be an iSCSI or an NFS volume in Kubernetes. So it's not going to have all the same persistent data that a CSI volume would have. So something somewhere is doing the translation, and I guess I haven't found that bit.
So currently, there's a handful of CSI drivers that are written under Kubernetes-CSI drivers.
Mm-hmm.
This includes iSCSI, NFS.
And I've written my own to do those things as well.
Okay.
And
So I think the task here was to update this driver, which actually looks like somebody already might have done that. Looks like Matt did that already. So it might be that there's no work here. Let's just go in and double check. I think there was two pieces of work. One was updated to align with 0.3, which looks like it was done. And the second piece was to pick up the common library if one existed. And in this case,
no, there's not going to be a common library.
Right. So it might be that there's no work that needs to be done here. The third thing that we wanted to do, Brad, was to split these guys out into their own repos. Can we get started on that when you do the library creation?
Yes, and we all want to do this under the Kubernetes-CSI org, correct?
Yeah. Just stick it all under Kubernetes-CSI. For the drivers, just prefix all of them with driver dash. So it'll become Kubernetes-CSI/driver-NFS, driver-iSCSI, and so on.
Okay.
And then the second one will be the library one. Maybe prefix all the library ones with library-iSCSI, library-NFS. That way it's kind of consistent when we look at the giant list of repos that we have. And then the third thing is we also wanted to get the external storage splitting out to repos work started. It's becoming especially important now because we have a new CSI API under Kubernetes/CSI-API that consumes the API machinery package, and the external storage, external provisioner code also directly consumes API machinery. And both of those packages are consumed by external provisioner. So this is a problem that Chang is running up against, which is if you have two different dependencies that both depend on the same dependency but depend on different versions of that same dependencies, everything blows up. So what we need is to be able to align the dependencies, and the only way that we can realistically do that is to have releases and versioning of the packages that are being consumed. And right now, external storage doesn't do releases, so everybody points at head. So let's go ahead and move the external storage or split it out into repos like we plan to, and then start doing releases for the external storage, external provisioner code, so that we could basically fix a certain version to a certain dependency and import that particular version.
Matthew opened the issue, I think, yesterday to split the provisioner piece out. What other pieces are the most essential to get out of that repo?
For now, it's just that provisioner piece. That's P0. Everything else is kind of we can do later.
Okay. So that's out there. Let's go approve that and get that thing going.
Okay. Feel free to ping me if you need any approvals or any +1s on anything.
Okay.
All right, cool. So that work is in progress. Ben, for this, it looks like it's probably not any work. You might want to double check, but it looks like it might not be any work.
I'll talk to Michelle and get my questions answered, because, yeah, I think what I'm concerned about is something different than what you're discussing, but isn't it?
Okay.
I think we're on the right track.
Cool. Next up is Flex Volume Resizing Support. This PR was under review, but did not make it for code review, or did not make it before code freeze. So we're punting it to the next release. I know there was a exception filed for this, and I blocked that exception because exceptions are for extraordinary cases. In this case, this was a P2 for SIG storage, and we need to kind of be well behaved within the larger community and not file exceptions just for every feature that doesn't make it. So we'll pick this up again next quarter and hopefully get this in. Beyond this feature, I'd really like to stop developing flex volumes further. We need to kind of incentivize CSI to be used and reduce the burden and developer time that we have by splitting it across multiple APIs. Let's focus it on a single area and make that as nice to use as possible.
Hey, on those lines, there is one issue that did come up around Flex support of relabeling, recursive relabeling for SE Linux permissions, and then the recursive chown for the group IDs. It's something that in-tree plugins don't have a problem with because they can skip it if they want, and it's not a call out. I opened an issue against this when we talked about, instead of adding like a function call or something, just doing it as a capability, as part of the capability call. But I was going to push that as a bug. I consider it like a bug in the Flex code. You know, it wasn't a, you know, it's not functionally the same as like the in-tree plugins, and some of the out-of-tree plugins are having problems with that recursive force on.
I think that would be okay. I just don't want this to become like one more bug, one more bug, one more bug, and we get into
I totally agree.
but that sounds okay.
By the way, that one is being worked on right now.
Okay. Let's make sure that gets tracked as an item for the next release. Next up is online volume expansion to beta. Matt, do you have an update on this?
It's not happening.
Okay.
We'll do it next week.
Sounds good. Okay. Next up is node shutdown, not attaching volumes when shut down. Progress on that? Go ahead.
So we've had a functional change around the node object, and that there was a pretty big change upstream, and I think it's this issue, right? Where we were deleting the node object before, now we're keeping it around, and deleting it caused some other stuff to kick off. I know.
Yeah. So if I remember this conversation, this was actually also related to the fact that we weren't calling detach if the node became unresponsive. So both of these conversations kind of got tied together, and we ended up pulling in people from SIG and from other places to try and figure out how best to handle this. The problem, I think, what it boils down to was the fact that when a node becomes unhealthy for a long period of time, the pods there are not actually deleted, and that is the signal that the attach-detach controller uses to actually trigger the detach. And so initially we were thinking of just handling this as a one-off for the storage team to say, hey, maybe we should add additional logic to detect when we should detach. But after a long conversation with the rest of the teams, including SIG node, what we decided is we need to leave the attach-detach controller dumb, meaning it continues to operate only on the fact that a pod is deleted or not deleted. And then it's the responsibility of the node controller or other components like the node problem detector to figure out when to mark a node as unhealthy and evict the pods. And so currently the problem is being pushed to those teams to figure out a better way to be able to handle these cases where a node is marked as unhealthy, or it's shut down and needs to be drained. So
that's somewhat of a cultural shift in this SIG, because I know we've been very diligent about trying to have smart recovery and smart detach, you know, so that the system comes to a.
We still have the smart recovery and smart detach. It's just the things that we trigger it off of have always been just, you know, the creation or deletion of a pod.
Right.
And we've discovered that that is not sufficient in all cases. And, you know, our initial reaction was, yeah, well, we can fix that. We'll just make it smarter. And then we got pushback from the other SIG saying, actually, you know, you keep doing what you're doing. We should be doing a better job handling these cases so that we give you a better signal.
Brad, the other problem is that the workarounds that were suggested to add to the attach-detach controller are actually not completely safe.
Right.
And it's possible that adding those can cause us to detach an already mounted volume, causing potential problems.
Right. So I think the point I'm trying to make is like we need to set the expectation in the SIG that the volume attach detach isn't going to be fully automatic anymore, and there's too many problems to try to make it fully automatic. That there's going to be some recovery in different parts, but it's probably not going to be as I don't know, as simple as we've been trying to make it in the past. We get rid of the expectation that the system's going to recover, that we can't.
No, I don't know if I agree with that. I think the system tries its best to recover where possible. There are still cases that we're not handling correctly, and we're going to try to fix those. We're not going to throw our hands up and say, sorry, user has to do it. We need to fix it, but whether it's code within the attached detached controller that's going to handle that, or code somewhere else in the
It's going to
system.
be based on the provider. I would say it's actually based mostly on cloud provider or the volume type to handle its own special case recovery scenarios. Right? We don't want to try to do that in the attached detached controller anymore.
Right, and I mean that's going to go to the Csi drivers eventually when we do the migration to CSI. But I think it's all it's various layers working together to achieve a desired end user behavior, right? So it's not like one component alone is going to be able to do this. Our end goal from the end user perspective is that it's fully automated and they don't need to do anything manual. Reality is that there are edge cases where there is manual intervention required today, and that shouldn't be the case. We need to work to resolve that. Whether that happens at the driver layer, at the attached detached controller layer, or at the bigger node problem detector or other layers, we need to figure that out and work with the
right. But let's be candid about the amount of work that's going to go into making that happen, right? Because it's like a cross SIG problem that we need to figure out how to champion somehow.
Yep. It's different from what we're used to, but I don't want to throw our hands up and say we're not going to do this. It's something that we still need to continue to push for. Okay, we can discuss that more offline if needed. Moving on, next up is mount namespace propagation to GA. That got merged as well. Thank you to Fabio. There were some questions there about feature gates and what that should look like, and that got resolved. And then finally, checkpointing. I don't believe there was any progress there. That's all that we have in terms of feature reviews. So overall, I think I'm pretty happy with the amount of work that we got completed. It was a lot of work for a very short amount of time. And for the next release, let's take a look at my schedule, but I believe we want to do planning during the next meeting. So I'll send out an email and I'll create a new tab under here for 113. You can start populating it for items that you think are important. And then on the 27th, we have our next meeting and we'll do planning for Q4 and figure out what we want to get into 1.13. And that's it for planning. Next up is PRs that need attention. So Ben, you have an item here for external provisioner vendor directories.
Yeah, so this is possibly me not understanding how to use the dep tool, but if you click on the PR and look at the size of it, so running dep ensure update was not enough to get the external storage repo forward to the point where the bits that I needed for doing mount options were there. So I went ahead and made a small change to the go package.toml file and then ran it again, and it was an enormous update. And I haven't figured out a way to get it to be like a small update that just gives me what I want.
Yeah, I think the way to do that is to minimize the change to the go package.toml file.
I did. This is the smallest change that I could make.
Okay.
That would give me what I needed.
In that case, my guess is that since you're updating API machinery, that's why you're getting a million files here. So that's kind of expected. That's okay.
So what are we supposed to do here? I mean, is it reasonable to take this giant PR with a huge vendor directory change?
Yes. The recommendation here is to split out the commits so that it's very easy to just look at the commit with a change versus the dep ensure, which it looks like you've already done. and then obviously minimize the dependency change as much as possible, which you've also done. And in this case, we haven't picked up API machinery for a while, so it looks like that needs to be updated, and you're the one that'll get 400,000 lines of.
It's like, yeah, it's a lot of change.
Ken, you may want to rebase yours because this is external provisioner, right? We have already done an update which is pointing to a later version than this one you're pointing right now.
Okay, well, I did this a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to discuss it the last thing you ran out of time. So maybe someone else has already done the update, but at the time, I could not figure out a way to sort this out.
Yeah, no, I think you did all
change.
the right things. So try the rebase and then check the dependencies again. Hopefully, the fact that it's already done makes it smaller.
And this might also be related to the external storage versioning.
It's definitely related because the piece that I needed was that external storage provisioner bit.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we really need to get this resolved. Brad, can we prioritize this like as P0 for today? And then all the other repo creation can be P1 and P2.
I mean, as a temporary measure, it's enough probably to bump the all the dependencies, all the Kubernetes dependencies version to v112 beta 1. And then after that, if we have more time, we can split it into a separate repo.
Would that be sufficient to unblock the API machinery mismatch?
It should, at least for me, it does. I don't know about others.
All right.
But then you, Chen, you need to make that change in external storage, right? Otherwise, it can't really update to anything higher than alpha.0, right?
Yeah, I think last time I checked, Matt was going to do that.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you can do that to unblock yourselves quicker, that's great. Go ahead and update all the versions to pick up the same version API machinery, including external storage and all the external sidecar containers. Yeah. At the same time, Brad can continue to do this work, and we can start doing proper releases on the external storage, external provisioner.
Yeah, or if it's like trivial to split it up into a separate repo pretty quickly, that works too.
Cool.
Up to you guys.
Matt, is there anything that you wanted to add to this? I know you mentioned that there was some discussion you wanted to have.
Well, y'all already kind of described the issue.
Okay.
So I linked to the repo creation request, and all it needs is approval, and then hopefully, we can get it done since it's been like a year, and I'm aware that it's very painful to deal with vendoring this stuff. So, for whatever that's worth, we can get it done pretty soon.
Cool. And the proposal here, what is the proposal? Kubernetes.
Right. So the only thing is I don't know what to name it. Other than that, if we get it created, I can just copy and paste my code there, and then.
Can we put it under Kubernetes SIGs and have it SIG Storage - external provisioner?
Sure.
Let me see what that SIGs. So this guy. Oops.
That would cause a name collision with Kubernetes CSI external provisioner.
So here's what I'm thinking: Kubernetes -SIG /SIG storage -external provisioner.
Okay.
Maybe external provisioner lib. Approved from SIG storage. Let's do. And the lib is just because this is not the full provisioner. Go ahead.
No, quick question. I was just going to suggest /SIG storage / external provisioner. No.
So we have no ability to do that. Like we could create a SIG storage repo, but what we decided now is we're going to do a separate repo for every project. And that, I mean, external storage was kind of that Mondo repo that we put everything under, and we realized everything was painful. So now what we're doing is a single repo for a project, and that makes it much easier to track issues and pieces and all that kind of stuff. So what we do is just prefix it with.
I was just suggesting
external
as,
provisioner.
okay.
Do you guys want -lib at the end or not?
I would prefer we do, actually.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, cool. Next up is status updates on volume snapshots. Xing?
I thought we have already given updates. I
Okay.
don't know who added this extra
Okay,
item
great.
here. I don't know if Jean is, I don't know if she added this one.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to discuss?
Saad, I'm still looking for LGTM from you from this
Ah,
blog.
yes. My apologies. I will take a look at that.
Yeah, the link is in your Slack, so.
Okay. Cool. I'll take a
You
look at
told
that.
me to keep bugging you. So
Yep, please do.
Oh, Saad, I have one question. So if PR is already merged by now, before the RC date, then you should go into 1.12, correct?
Yes, I don't believe they've created a repo for 1.12 yet. So as soon as a repo is created, then we need to start doing cherry picks.
Oh, okay, thanks.
You mean a branch?
Yes, as soon as a branch is created, sorry. Let me check.
I thought the branch was already created.
The branch is already created, but they're also, sorry, to be clear, they're doing automatic batch cherry picks. So whenever they stop doing the automatic batch cherry picks, which I'm not sure what the deadline is, whether it's RC or closer to the release date, then we'll have to do cherry picks. But for now, just make sure that your PRs are marked with 1.12. And if you have any questions, just ping the release team on the release channel on Slack, and they should be able to give you the latest update. And if there's any issue, just ping me and I can help resolve that.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? All right, great. So thank you very much for all your hard work this quarter. I think we got a lot done. We're in a good position to push to a GA for CSI next quarter. That's going to be the culmination of a lot of work. And so next steps are at our next meeting on the 27th, we'll do planning for the 1.13 Q4 release. So if you're interested at all in what's going on or what SIG Storage is going to work on or volunteering for any work, anything like that, please attend the next meeting and we'll go over that. And that's it. Thank you very much. Take care.